Thank you, Don. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here for our first session for the Leadership Training Series, and I'm glad that we have Beta NYC to kick us off. Um, Appreciate everybody who has signed up, joining us here for our first session. Before I go into passing it over for introductions and the presentation, I just want to make a plug. We have 6 other sessions that are happening this week. I encourage anyone who has the ability to do so to attend as many sessions as possible. Tomorrow in particular, I just want to flag at 5 p.m. We're hosting a brand new session. We haven't done this one before on understanding housing finance. So I would greatly encourage folks to enter to take that one. We're also going to have a session on Friday afternoon in person at our office down on 1 Center Street. That'll be on emergency preparedness and in conjunction with New York City Emergency Management and the American Red Cross. So lots of great trainings coming up. I also, before we get started, want to thank the borough president for his support in getting these sessions off the ground. I want to thank Keisha Sutton James, who oversees our unit. I want to thank Porfirio Figueroa, whose tireless dedication to the leadership training series means that he has been part of the planning and the conversations and all the back end work that makes these happen, and to Dawn for her support on this too, as well as all our CAU team. I should have probably introduced myself in case you haven't met me yet, but I am Eric Cuello. I'm the Director of Community Affairs for the Manhattan Borough President. I will pass it off to Porfirio in just a moment. I just briefly wanted to say you are in the right place. Today's session is going to be about open city data. I think, as all of you know very well, so much of the work that you do is influenced by what you're hearing or seeing from your communities. So the information we get from various sources really informs us on the decisions we make. So whether you're having conversations about liquor or sidewalk cafe applications, all the way down to votes on infrastructure and roadway updates, there's so much more to it. But knowing how to and being able to access city data kind of gives you the opportunity to back up these decisions and make informed decisions with the data that is publicly available, but sometimes maybe not as easy to understand or to configure in a way that makes the most sense for what you're doing. So I will pass it to Porfirio, who will be able to do some introductions for the Beta NYC team. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Eric. I so appreciate you and our team. And speak of teams, we love our partnership with Beta NYC. So if you'll allow me, I will introduce Ashley Louie. Ashley is the Chief Technology Officer at Beta NYC, who works at the intersection of public interest, technology, data visualization, and communication design. She holds a Master of Science in Architecture and Urban Design from Columbia University and previously worked at MIT Civic Data Design Lab, where she designed and developed projects that involve data analysis and visual communication, information in innovation and creative ways. As Director of Civic Innovation Lab at Beta NYC, Ashley is committed to making information on urban issues in New York City more accessible through research and data assistance. She's also joined by Dimitri Mimy. Uh, and Dimitri is the Civic Innovation Fellowship Manager at Beta NYC. Dimitri graduated from Queens College with a Bachelor of Social Science in Biology and Psychology and is currently pursuing a Master's of Science in Biology with a focus on urban ecology, continuing at Queens College. He's an alumni of the 8th cohort of the Civic Innovation Fellows Program at Beta NYC and the Office of the Manhattan Borough President. Dimitri is passionate about the intersection of open data, environmental justice, and accessibility, and in learning more about how biological life exists in urban contexts. Andrew Kittredge, forgive me. Andrew is the Civic Innovation Lab Manager at Beta NYC, and Andrew was first introduced to open data while working as a research assistant at Hunter College, where he received his Master's of Science in Geography. Having relied heavily on open data for his own education, He is very excited to be helping others assessing this resource for their own needs. So without further ado, I will pass this on to Ashley. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Dimitri is actually going to kick off our slides. So over to you, Dimitri.
Roger, thank you so much for the great intros, Porfirio. All right, so I'll be sharing our slides now. There. Can everybody see our nice little landing page?
Yes, we can.
Awesome, that's wonderful. So I'll be kicking off. We're going to start with intros, but I feel like Porfirio, you did that so well. I'm Dimitri, as introed by Porfirio. I'm Civic Innovation Fellowship Manager. I'm joined here by my two awesome colleagues, Ashley and Andrew. So yes, I guess we can sort of move forward with our goals for the day. I'll be passing off to Ashley briefly soon, and we'll be resuming afterwards. To get started, we'll go over some virtual meeting norms for our talk today. Really recommend asking questions. We love to interact with y'all. We'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Please use the chat or the raised hand function. We recommend turning your cameras on. We love to see your faces, but it's all right if not. Mute yourself when not talking, but I guess we're in a webinar, so that's probably already taken care of. Thank you so much again, Porfirio, and Eric as well. And we really recommend being present. We want to see you all go on this journey with us and learn about open data and all the great things it can offer. So yeah, really excited to talk to you all today. Moving forward, I'll share a brief agenda of our topics today. I'll be introducing open data. I'll first go over a brief history of like how we got here, what open data is. I'll then be sharing a brief demo on accessing New York City Open Data through the New York City Open Data platform, which is a really, really exciting tool that I'm excited to share with you all. It's a great platform to access civic data. I'll then be sharing some resources that are in our slide deck, such as a list of tools that use NYC Open Data. And we also have a little section on data analysis. We'll do a brief Q&A, and then we'll wrap up and we'll share some resources if you want to stay in touch with us, and also some next steps. So yeah, that's a brief of our activities today. Moving forward again, I'll actually pass off now to Ashley, who will introduce us, who we are at BetaNYC.
Thanks, Dimitri. So again, Ashley, I use she, her pronouns. BetaNYC is a civic technology nonprofit organization. We are a team of 7 full-time staff, 2 associates, 2 junior associates, and sometimes like once or twice a year, we have 4 to 8 college students that join us as Civic Innovation Fellows. Next slide, Dimitri. Thank you. Our mission is to make information and data easier to access for all New Yorkers and to empower people to improve their communities. So once again, we really want to empower people to use data and make information easier to access. And one of the ways we do that is this intro session on open data. Next slide. Yeah. So BetaNYC started as a meetup in around 2008 to 2009. Since then, we've sort of supported the passing of the open data law, and we've grown kind of alongside that by continuing to support open data through public programs, a fellowship, and offering research and data assistance services. Yeah. So today we work in partnership with New Yorkers and local government. 3 ways that we do this is we build a civic tech talent pipeline through our Civic Innovation Fellowship. where we train CUNY students in civics and data analytics. The second way is that the Civic Innovation Lab runs a help desk that responds to the needs of local community organizations and New York City offices. So if you have a data question and can't quite figure it out yourself, please reach out to us. We're happy to help. And then the third way is through our public data literacy programs. So this course on the intro to open data and how to use it is, within the Open Data Ambassadors program. And we really want to just empower you all with the knowledge to access this data and information that is publicly accessible. So back to you, Dimitri. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley, for that great intro. Before we get started, we'd love to hear from you all here and joining us in this webinar. Please use the chat. Let us know who you are, a brief introduction of yourself, and why you're here, why you wanted to attend this session, or what brought you to hear about open data. So yeah, for sure. Please do just respond in the chat. And Andrew, I'll be asking you to help support in the chat as well and help generate some cool interaction in there. So yeah, that's really cool. So please do that as we move forward. Okay, moving on. Today, we're here to learn to use open data. And what we'll be doing is giving a brief introduction of open data, what open data is, why it's so important, why it's so useful, and we'll also be giving you all a brief overview of how we got here. What is open data now, what has helped it become what it is today. So yeah, let's move forward. Let's define open data. So before we get into how we got here, we should first understand what it is, right? And why it's so important, why we keep talking about it. NYC Open Data is fundamentally any information or data about New Yorkers and about the city or its agencies that, and this is the fundamental part of this definition, that is accessible to all or to the public in general, which means that anybody can essentially go in and view this information and this data. So it includes virtually anything that can be counted as information about the city. And fundamentally, it must be available. It must be something that you can reach and that you can access and that you can use in your projects as just an everyday person, as a civilian. And that's really what makes open data the most important. It's all about availability and access, being able to reuse and redistribute it, and being able to participate in its production and in its use and its dissemination. So yeah, that's open data. To give you all a brief example of what open data can look like in our city, this can be everything from information on our public recycling bins. It could be traffic data. It could be demographic information about the number of people or the characteristics of people living in a part of the city. It could even include something like restaurant violations or restaurant inspection results. All of this is information about our city that is made public to New Yorkers and thus falls under the category of open data. So moving forward, being so publicly accessible, open data has a variety of users and use cases. So everyone from a everyday person who's just curious about, say, the status of a restaurant, inspection results, to a civic employee who wants to use some demographic or census data for a report, to even a community activist or community champion who wants to use open data about the city to gather support and visibility around a particular social cause or issue that they're very concerned about. So yeah, just to move forward, you can use open data to fact check, you can track certain important community issues, business research, monitor public health information, and so on and so on. There are so many awesome use cases for open data. And now, well, let's talk a little bit about how we got here. Of course, NYC Open Data is, with any data related term, something that we can often think of as a 21st century phenomenon, right? Like all of this is part of the technological age and our new digital era. But in fact, open data and data transparency, especially in the context of government, can be traced pretty far back. One of the first examples of this is, for example, the city record. So way back in the late 1800s, during the progressive era of government reform, there was a publication made called the City Record. And the purpose of this publication was essentially to just share city notices and updates. And the reason why this was done was that there was a pretty big corruption scandal at the time around the misuse of government funds. If you want to check back on progressive era corruption scandals, it makes for good coffee table reading. So yeah, in an effort to increase data transparency and basically assuage and calm and soothe the public and ensure them and us in general that funds were going to the right places and that government was being handled responsibly, the city record was created way back then. And a fun fact is that the city record actually continues up till today. So all these years later, it's been made digital. And there's actually a little link to the modern city record posted here, and you can still visit it today to see any information or updates on city projects or city related news. So yeah, please do check that out. It's a nice little piece of history that's continued till this day, and it represented a pretty important step in data transparency. So now, flashing forward about 100 years to the 1960s and 1970s, we saw the passing of freedom of information laws and acts in states around the country. And what this meant is that this made certain government information available upon request. So if you were aware of a particular government document or data material, you could in fact reach out to the government and request to see that documentation. Pictured here is actually a memo on FBI investigations into the passing of Martin Luther King Jr. And this is information that was actually retrieved via a FOIL request. So yeah, this was a pretty big step in data transparency to make it available to the public to be able to request specific data documentation and within the government. And that was like a really, really big step. However, this actually did not fully constitute open data. And the big reason why is actually in the request. Requesting information meant that people who wanted to view this information had to already be aware that it exists, right? So that created a bit of an information barrier for a lot of the general public because many people are not necessarily very informed on the existence of some of these documents and data materials within government. And so this was a barrier that prevented this from being true open data, even though it was definitely a really big step in data transparency and especially government data transparency. Now we're gonna flash forward a smaller time jump this time, just about 20 or so years to 1993. And this was when we saw the creation of a public data directory, specifically in New York City. And this was really cool because this was one of the first forms of, I would say, analog open data in the sense that it took a section of data that could be made accessible through a FOIL request and actually put that into a document that anybody could come in, browse, and request and use to request information. And so you wouldn't need to necessarily know what you wanted to see in advance. You could literally come in, review this documentation, this catalog of sorts, and use it as a guide to actually request information that you wanted to see. And so this was another really big step in data transparency, and I would say a form of analog open data. So now moving forward, we got to 2012, and this was when we passed in New York City the Open Data Law. And this was a law that was signed in by former Mayor Bloomberg. And what this essentially did was that it enshrined as a right, as a legal right for the public to have access to public information on government related processes and information about New York City civics. And what this did was that it essentially made it extremely affirmed and very strongly established in a very legal and legislative way for us to have access to government data as members of the public. And another cool thing about this law is that it actually made sure that open data would be legislated and maintained in perpetuity. And what this means in perpetuity is that this would remain a constant of New York City's relationship with open data, regardless of administration. So even if there was a transfer of power, if a new mayoral administration comes in, we will make sure that this right to access open data is enforced and maintained. So that was really cool. And it was really quite a big milestone in creating open data for all. Around the same time, we also saw the emergence over time of the NYC Open Data platform. And what this was essentially a digitized version of the public directory that I mentioned previously. What it was is that it created this page, this platform, this online space where we could essentially gather and organize open data about New York City and New York City governmental agencies and commissions. And that has since become the primary and go-to place to find open data, especially open governmental and civic data about New York City. And this is also the platform that I'll be introducing to you all today. So flashing forward to the NYC Open Data platform, this great digital space sees over 1 million visitors each year. It hosts more than 3,000 data sets, and it's maintained by a team of roughly 100 open data coordinators partnering with city agencies, offices, and commissions throughout the city to make data sets available for all of those visitors that come in every year and make sure that our data processes are smooth and remain available to anyone who would be willing to come in and access it. Now, moving forward. Oh, and by the way, this link on the slides is exactly where you can go to access the Open Data platform, and we'll be seeing that together soon. So today, what we'll be doing is I'll be walking you through accessing the NYC Open Data platform, reading data sets, choosing a data set and filtering it down to exactly the things that you want to see, grouping that information into numbers and counts that can really speak to you. And we'll also be demoing the visualizer tool and the NYC Open Data platform, which helps you generate quick data visualizations using information in NYC Open Data sets. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing. It's very, very soon. And today, there are many, many data sets that we can use on the NYC Open Data platform to demonstrate these very processes. But today, we'll be using NYC 311 Open Data. 311 is a New York City governmental resource that helps assist and provide general information outside of emergency situations. And what that really means is when you have an issue in the city that isn't an emergency, this is where you reach out to instead of 911. So let's say there's a collapsed tree. Let's say there's a dirty sidewalk. Maybe your neighbors are being super noisy. That can all go into a 311 request. It's a service that's open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's available in over 175 languages and for roughly 3,600 government services. The 311 line is accessible via phone, which is the good old-fashioned way, but is also available via a web page through many forms of social media, including Skype, Twitter, and Facebook, and also has a dedicated mobile 311 app. So we'll be using information from 311 requests in our exploration of the Open Data platform today. So yeah, let's do that. And now I'll be taking you all to the landing page of the NYC Open Data platform. And for this, I'll briefly reshare my screen to make sure that you can see everything that I'm working on the NYC Open Data platform and showing to you all today. So I'll be right back. I'll stop sharing temporarily. And I'll share again. And this time I'll just share my entire screen. So let me go here. Boop. Boop. And let's do that sharing. Let's go. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
That's wonderful. All right, let's dive into the NYC Open Data platform together. So let's go in here. All right, we're now at the landing page of the NYC Open Data platform. And here you'll just see the overall primer, or just the overall starting launching pad of this platform. If you scroll to the top, you'll see there's some listed options here. There's data, about, learn. If you scroll down as well and you just want to get involved, you can see here there's some tabs for if you're new to open data, if you're a data veteran, if you'd like to get in touch, and also just diving directly into the data. Today, we're very data focused, so I'll actually go up here and right next to home, I'll click over into data. All right, so if you're accessing this page for the first time, there's a few options here. So let's say you don't know what data set you're really looking for. You just want to explore and look around. We have some new data sets that you can check out over here. To the left, we also have some popular data sets if you just want to see what everybody's looking for. If you scroll down a bit more, there's actually right under that data sets by category. So if you're interested in business and finance, if you're interested in city government or education or the environment, you can check out data sets that are grouped into any one of these major categories. And if we scroll down a little bit more, and you're coming from this at an angle to see data sets from a particular agency, there's a list of agencies with data sets on the Open Data platform. And if you click into any one of these, you can access all of their data sets on this site. Now, moving upwards again, we see that we have to the right this very central search tab. And since I said earlier, we already know that we really want to check out 311 data, I'll go ahead and I'll type that into the search bar and I'll just search. All right. Once you make a search, most of the results will be shown in order of relevance to the terms you typed in. So if we look down here, we can immediately see there's a data set here, 311 service requests from 2010 to present. So that looks really good. We also have some other results that are a little bit less relevant. So we have a call center inquiry data set. We have service requests for just 2009 and then 2008 below as well. Something that I recommend doing is when you're reviewing a search result, you can actually check the description, but you can also go over here and look to the side. You can see when it was last updated. Just to ask, can everybody see my mouse or my cursor as I move?
Yes.
We do.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. All right. So if you see where I'm circling here, you can view when the data set was last updated. So we see here it was updated on the 27th. That's pretty recent. We can also see the views. We have over 800,000 views. So that might indicate that this is a pretty popular data set and it might just be what we're looking for. So when you're interested in one of your results, you'll just click in over here and it'll bring you to the primer page for the data set you've selected. There's a few things here that I really want to spotlight for everyone, especially accessing a page like this for the first time, perhaps. I recommend going over here to this middle left section where you will see the information box and just clicking read more and getting a quick read of that description to confirm that you found the data set you were looking for. So if we look here, we can see that this is all 311 service requests from 2010 to the present. So pretty current. We can also see that this information is automatically updated daily. So that aligns with the last updated date we saw earlier. If we look over here, we also have a note that lets us know that the data set is currently showing some incorrect values in the agency name column and advising us to use the agency column until this is resolved. So this is a really good place as well to get some of those quick heads up before you actually get into the data. Scrolling down a little bit more, I want to highlight the About This Dataset section. You can see here when it was last updated again, which, as we can see, was on the 27th. We can also see when the dataset was created. So we can see that it was created October 10th, 2011. If you go to the right of that over here, you can see once again, the update frequency is daily and that this is an automatic process. We can also see when the date of the data set of when it was made public, and we can see that that's the 18th of October 2011, so that aligns with the date created as well. Something that I really want to spotlight in this section is this little attachments area right here. And this is where you will find metadata. And what that is essentially data about the data or data about this data set in this specific case. The attachment section is where you will find usually information about the data set that you want to see. So if you click onto this attachment, it will actually make a quick download, usually as an Excel spreadsheet. So I'll demonstrate that now. So all right, let me just X that out. If we go over to our downloads, we can see that there's a data dictionary that's been downloaded here with our data set name. Let's click into that. All right, let's go. And there, you will have this view pop up. And what this is that this is the metadata or data about the data for this particular data set. And if we scroll down into this data dictionary, we can see information about the data set itself, the URL where it's located. We can also see where this data comes from, who it's provided by, which is a 301 service. If we scroll down, we have a dataset description that has a little bit more text than the one that we had on the primer page. And I also want to direct your information down here to the tabs at the lower end of the page, where you will see this column information tab. And what this does is that it essentially just lets you know what all the columns in the dataset mean and what they contain. So if we scroll down here, for example, under column name, we'll see that there's this unique key column. And if we go to column description right next to that, we can see that it lets us know that the unique key is a unique identifier of each service request in the open data set. And it also lets us know that every service request has a assigned code, this unique key, that identifies it as a distinguished or separate case from another request. So that's really good information to know going in. If we look down also, we have this expected allowed values column in the data dictionary. And what that lets us know is what the actual contents of the column may look like. So if we scroll down column name to agency, and we move to expected or allowed values, it lets us know that this is going to be a list of agency acronyms that can be found in the data set. So things like ACS, AJC, CHALL, DCA. And so we know that this is what it will actually look like in the actual data set. So now I'll click out of this data dictionary and I'll return to our primer page. So now we know what's in the data set and we know what some of the columns will look like. I want to scroll down and highlight this what's in the data set section down here as well. This lets us know that there are 38 million rows in this data set, and that's a lot, right? It also lets us know that there are 41 columns, and it lets us know that each row is a 301 service request. So that means roughly 38 million service requests. Lots of data, and we'll probably need to taper this down to actually work with it and get to learn something from it. So that's what I'll be showing very soon. If you go over here near the top, there's this actions drop-down menu, and you click on that, it will drop down a list of options, including query data and visualize. We'll return to visualize later. But what we're really interested in is this query data right here. And this is where we're going to go in to actually view this data set and also filter it down, narrow it down to some things and reorganize it into numbers that can really speak to us. So let's do that now. All right, so it may take a little second to load. It appeared really quickly today, but do know that loading times on the open data platform can vary with traffic and things like time of day, how many people are using it. So do budget a little bit of loading time when you access the actual data set. So if we look here, we can see that we have all these rows. And if we go down, it lets us know that it's showing us rows 1 to 100 of 37,900,000 plus requests, all right? So that's a lot. And what we really want to do is immediately start shaving this down a little bit into a smaller slice that we can work with and learn from. So the first step to doing that is to use a filter. And if you go down here, it's usually the first selected tab at the bottom for a reason. So if we go to the lower left, you'll see that filters is selected. And we really want to go here, and this is where you're going to start narrowing this data set down. So let's click over here and choose a column to filter by. When you're first starting to filter, I really recommend starting with the date created or the time that the request was created. The reason why is because this helps narrow down your request to a specific time frame, and that's one of the best ways to cut down all of these requests to a number that's really workable. So when you select create a date, you'll see this little modifier appear. It says is between. If you click on it, there are other modifiers available. So like there's is not, is less than, is greater than. But for the purposes of identifying a time range, is between works just great. And then right next to that, you'll see that there's a time available. So you click onto here, and this is the time frame that you're starting at. So let me just choose a time that might be a little fun to work with. Let me go over, let's do 4th of July this year. Let's see what people were talking about then on the 3-on-1 open data set. So I'll go over here to July. I'll use these arrows to navigate, and then I'll click on the 4th. I want to look at the 4th of July. One thing to note is that the 3-on-1 data set meters time by the hour because the request actually submitted every minute, right? So it makes sure that we're being as specific as possible. And so here I'll click again onto my time box, and I'll go back and I'll make sure that I've selected 12 a.m. I want to do the full 24 hours. And right over here next to end, I'll choose the ending time. And so I'll just click over again. Really want to see what was going on the 4th of July. So let me go back and find that day again. So I'll click on July 4th. And then I'll go back, I'll click again, and I want to put this at close as possible to the 24-hour mark. So I'll scroll down and I'll choose the latest time of the day. So let's do 11:45 p.m. So we have a good 24 hours here. And once you've defined your filter, let's go ahead and click on the bottom left on apply, and let's see what happens. So there, we can see that our filter was applied, and it's now showing us rows 1 to 100 of 10,000. And that's just a lot less than 37 million, right? So that's a lot more workable. What we can do also is use filters to make a more specific search. So let's say I wanted to see a little bit more information. Or just more specific information, and just trim this down even more. Let's go down here and I'll choose another column to filter by. So let's see what we have, what our options are. I'm aware that there's a lot of community board representation here. And so maybe let's look at that. Let's look at community board. So let me click into that. And we can see here our modifier is now is one of, and of course there are other modifiers available, but is one of works just fine for us today. Actually, I might ask this one to the chat. Do we have a community board that we want to see complaints in or that we want to see requests from? Drop it in the chat. Do let us know, and I'll choose that one. Cool. Andrew, do you
We've
mind
got a
sharing?
few here. The first one in was Community Board 4, from Kevin Collins. Folks are asking also for 12, 10. I see 4 again, so maybe we could start with 4.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew. It looks like we have a lot of interest for 4, so let's do that. And actually, one thing to recommend is when you search in the filter tool, you need to use the formatting that exists for that category in the dataset. And a way to check that is to go back to the data dictionary if you want to review the expected values for community boards. A nice little cheat for that as well is to actually slide over on the little dataset preview that we have here in this window and see how community boards are formatted in the dataset. So if we go over here, we see that community boards, all right, we see that they're formatted with a 0 before single letters and in all caps. So knowing this, let me just look up 04. And we want to look at Manhattan. And by the way, the data platform will also give you these suggested findings and results within the row as well. So like we see, 04 Manhattan is already recommended. So let's click onto that. And now I'm just going to want to apply that again. So I'll go down to the bottom left and I'll click apply. And there, we now see only requests coming from Community Board 4 in Manhattan. And that's narrowed our search down to about 118 requests. So that's really specific. And if you wanted to add another layer of detail to this, you could add another filter. So I'll do that here just to make our search even more specific. And I'll click over, review my options, and let's go for agency. Let's do that. That sounds really cool. Let's choose an agency. Let's see what some of the agency options are in the data set. If I go over here, let's see, where's the agency tab? Let's go. All right. It looks like there's a lot of NYPD. So let's say I wanted to only look at 311 service requests or complaints to the NYPD. So let's do that. I'll click agency. Once again, I have this little modifier is one of. I know I want to find info from the NYPD, so now I'll start typing that in. Let's do NY. And look, it comes up. So let's select that. And I'll click apply again at the bottom left. And there, now we have just 60 requests, just 60 3-in-1 service requests. So that's really, really specific and really, really narrow from a whole 37 million, right? And we're looking at requests made to the NYPD on the 4th of July this year. So let's see, I have this list of 311 service requests in my view right now, but this isn't really very informative, right? It's just like this bundle of requests. So that's why we'll go to the group and aggregate. So this is the tab right below the filter tab where there's this little box with the 2 overlapping boxes inside. I'll click into that on the bottom left side of the screen, and it'll give us a few options. So to start, we can group by a specific column that we're interested in, so we can see the data set in terms of that column. Let's see our options. I always like to do complaint type. Complaint type is a good one. Let's see what everybody was complaining about. Let's do that. So great. And when you scroll down within the group and aggregate tab, I'll make it a little bit wider. We see that there's also this aggregate by. And what this does is that it will organize the service requests in terms of the category we just selected and group by. So when I click over here, I see a couple of options, including unique key. So what the aggregate column will do is that it will look at each service request in terms of the column that you chose in the group by selection. So in terms of complete type. And I really recommend starting off with a unique key selection because we've learned from the data dictionary, this is the code that identifies individual requests. So let's count the requests by their unique codes to make sure that we're not counting 2 requests as the same that were just made on the same time, right? If we were to use created date as the aggregate by, for example. So let's make sure that we're representing every single request with the unique key column selection. And over here, let's choose a calculation. And I like to always start with a simple count. And what this will do is that it will count all of the requests by their unique key, their unique code. So they're all being counted in terms of what I previously chose, which is complaint type. So let's see that. And when we scroll down, let's click apply again at the bottom left. Apply. It'll run our query that we just built together. And there, now if you look, you'll see that all these requests are now grouped by type of complaint, and they also have a nice little number to the side that lets us know how many. Now, it's really cool that we see this information. It's a lot more readable than before, but it's still not perfect, right? Let's say I wanted to know what the most common complaint was right off the bat. You can do that. So if we go down to the tab right below the grouping and aggregation tab, we have these 3 bars where it says column manager. So let's go over here. And if you actually look down, you'll see the 2 columns that you have above. And let's say I wanted to see the most numerous complaint right away, right at the top. I can actually go down to the count unique key column, and this is where we have our numbers. I'll click on the sort space. I'll click on the drop down next to no sort. And I'll choose to sort descending. And that'll just make sure that the biggest number is at the top. So let's click onto that. And I'm going to apply that now at the bottom left again. And there, now we have the most numerous complaints at the top. So now if we look at this result, we now know that on the 4th of July this year in Community Board 4 in Manhattan, we actually had these complaints. And so we see a lot of illegal parking. So that's the top. So that was a big thing back then at that time. We see encampment, noise, street sidewalk. So lots of celebration, lots of people being loud on the streets. We also see noise residential. So there were maybe some house parties going on. So yeah, we can see here a brief snapshot of what the 3-in-1 service requests look like at this space and time using these tools and the Open Data platform. And if you actually wanted to take this result that you just pared down out of the platform and into like another software or another tool, you could actually do that by going to the top right where it says export. You can actually click there. It'll come up with this mini menu. And there you can actually choose your preferred format. So we have comma separated values or CSV. We also have CSV for Excel, RDF, RSS. And this is where you can actually choose your desired format to download this data. So yeah, if I wanted to take this out and I wanted to put it in another tool, I could just click download here and I'll see that. So cool. This was exporting on the NYC Open Data platform. Yeah, I hope this was a really cool little look at what you can do here. I'll return to our overview. So I'll return to our primer page. And I want to just quickly demo something else. I want to be mindful of time, but let's do this. Let me show you all the visualizer. So the visualizer is just another interface with which you can interact with datasets on the NYC Open Data platform and actually turn the information within each dataset into a quick visualization. So let's go into the visualizer now. You'll get this prompt to sign in. I won't be doing it for the purposes of this demo, but I really recommend if you're just generally using the platform, signing in to make sure that all your visuals are kept and preserved. So I'll click no thanks here. So the display, the user interface here looks a little different, but it's actually all the same fundamental tools as the other data view we were just looking at. So if I scroll down here, I'll see all these tables again, all these rows. I see that it's fetching row count, but I can be pretty sure that it'll be roughly the same as the data platform, that big 37 million number. So we have that, but what we want to do in the visualizer is we want to once again start off with just filtering. And so over here, I'll click add filter. And what I want to do, let's say I just wanted to see exactly what we just looked at, but in a visual form, right? So I'll go here and I'll just retrace our steps. So I'm going to start with a filter for created date. So there we go. And I want to make sure that I'm using the same time frame as before. So under there's a selection that's created and I'll go select. There's two options here. So there's a time range, similar to what we saw in the previous data view. There's also this relative date field. So if I just wanted to look at requests for today, yesterday, this week, or this month, I could do that as well. But I'll go here, I'll click in, and I want to really find the 4th of July. So I'll go back again, I'll search for that date. I'll click onto it. Since I was only looking at those 24 hours, I'll click again, and I'll make sure that this is my preferred field. So now I'm going to apply this filter. Let's scroll down, and we see once again, it's 10,000. So we're following the same route. Let's add our second filter, which I recall was community board. So let's add that again. We'll click in here. We know that it was 04 Manhattan, so we'll just look for that really quickly. So let's do that. Okay, 04 Manhattan, I'll apply again. Let's move a little faster this time since we know what we were doing. And I once again want to filter for agency. So let me go down here. And I'll add our last filter, our agency filter. I think it's closer to the top over here. Once again, I'll select, I'll type in, actually, NYPD is one of the most common. So I can just scroll down here and click on NYPD. So let's apply. And that's really great. And now that our filters are in place, let's go back to make sure we're looking at the same things. So over here, the counterpart to the grouping area in the original data view is actually this data selection space to the right, to the left-hand side of the screen. So if you go over here, it'll say data selection, and we have dimension here. And what this is, it's essentially the visualizer's counterpart to when we're selecting that group by column and we chose complete type. So let's click again. We'll see our options looking familiar. And I want to see the same findings. So let me just go straight to complaint type and I'll add that in. And there, it automatically brings us to a visual of exactly the data we're looking at before. So if I look at this here, we see once again, illegal parking is the highest with 16 service requests, encampment, noise, street sidewalk, and noise residential. And this is actually just one of many available views on the platform. We can click in and see this in a different orientation. We can also see a pie chart. And actually all the visuals on the platform, you can modify yourself. So if we go down to the slice display options, for example, for this pie chart. Let's say I just wanted to look at the big ones. Like I just wanted to see illegal parking, encampment, noise, and noise again. But I still wanted to make sure that these are here, but just in one big category for the smaller complaints, right? We see here that checked is group remaining as other, and I'll go to where it says show 12 slices. I'll click on those 12 slices, and let's say I just want to look at the top 4. So I'll be 4 slices. And there. My pie chart now groups all of the other complaints into this other category. Right here, this purple other, and now I can see that illegal parking is 16, pretty big slice, and so on for encampment and noise, street sidewalk, and noise residential. So yeah, this is how you use the visualizer. There's many more types of visuals that you can use, and you can even use a map if your data set has location data, which I believe the 3-in-1 data set does. So that's really cool. But yeah, I hope this was a really cool preview of how you can generate a small visual on the Open Data platform and just generally use it to view civic data. So now I want to head back to our presentation and just wrap up this demo. So I'll move over back to our slides and I'll flash forward. So we're getting close to time, so I want to be conscientious of that. So I'll just skip forward to some of resources that we have in the slide deck. So we have some tools that use open data. Hold on just. All right. So actually, our plan for today is to share the slide deck with you. So all the resources that I've been showing up until now, you will actually be able to access yourselves and review. And as part of this slide deck, we've included a section on tools that use data from the Open Data platform that are pre-created for you to access specific slices of data sets on the platform. So to give you an example of what some of those look like, we have the Open Data Project Gallery, where you can find several projects that have been created using NYC Open Data. You can also go over here and see an example of the maps gallery, which we can go to see maps that have been created with open data. So yeah, there's a lot of cool resources that are present, and I really recommend when you receive the slide deck to review those resources and make sure that you can see all the tools that we have available for you. Also in our slides, I'll move forward a little bit. Let's go to the Analyzing 3-in-1 Data demo. We have a little section in our slide deck that actually demonstrates using 3-in-1 data. So you can see the process from taking 3-in-1 data from the platform and transforming this into an actual report, courtesy of our lab. So please do review this as well. But in the interest of time, I'll flash forward to a quick Q&A. Porfirio, can I just ask, do you think we'll have time to take some questions before closing?
I'll let Eric take that from this point on.
Sure.
All right, Eric.
Thank you so much, Dimitri, for the presentation. I did see Andrew was answering questions in real time in the Q&A, so I don't think that there's any open questions. So I think we're in a good place time-wise. But I think if anyone has any particular questions that they want to ask, this is a perfect time to drop it in the chat before we wrap. In the interim, I'll just say thank you so much, Dimitri and BetaNYC, for this presentation. I felt like it was incredibly thorough on a subject that we can honestly spend hours and maybe even days really dissecting. And just as you were reminding folks, and I want to remind folks too, there's so much good information, and we're really excited that you're sharing the slide deck. We will also make sure we share, as you can see at the top, you'll see that we're recording this presentation. All the presentations at the end of the leadership training week get posted on our website. So we will have the video. So if folks want to go back and review something, they'll be able to do so. And we will also include the slide deck there as well, so that folks can access it. So you'll make sure to have that information. It's not going anywhere. So thank you so much again, Dimitri. I see more thank yous. If you look in the chat, it's just a lot of thank yous. It was a really, really great presentation. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's so great. Thank you as well. Shout out to Andrew for holding the chat down. Thank you all for being so responsive as well. And it's really my pleasure to share open data. Since there's no outstanding questions, I'll just share a few engagement slides if you want to stay in touch with us.
Yeah,
And we'll wrap
please.
up. So one thing I want to shout out is if you have more questions as well, there's actually a contact us section on the NYC Open Data platform where you can make a request and send a note directly to the data coordinators that help run the platform, and they'll be there to assist you with any of your data needs, including like if you want to just find a data set, if you need help transforming it or filtering it. It's just a great resource, and I really want to shout that out. So moving forward as well, we have our own resource here. So Andrew, if you don't mind, do you want to speak a little bit about our Civic Innovation Lab and how they can access us?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Dimitri, and thanks everyone for being here. So one of the things we do here at the Civic Innovation Lab at BetaNYC is build tools that use open data. We also run a service that we call our Research and Data Request service. We call that our Radar service. That's open to the public. Like the help desk, we help folks, especially community boards, community members, with research and data requests. So check that out on our website. If you have something that may be a good fit for us working together, I really encourage you to do so.
Awesome. Thank you so
Great.
much, Andrew. We also have our data and literacy programs for the public, courtesy of our public programs department. One thing to shout out is that there is Open Data Week, a week-long festival of events that we help organize in coordination with and collaboration with the Office of Technology and Innovation here in New York City. And it's a really cool series of events in March, usually, that runs for a week where you can just attend various workshops, presentations, and talks that showcase open data. And we also have our very own conference that we run during that week, usually called the School of Data Conference, which you can actually attend to see different sessions and talks centering open data and public interest technology. We also have an Open Data Ambassadors program that we run where we have volunteers who come in and run classes much like this one, maybe with even a bit more detail for just general members of the public. So if you want to check out those classes, we'll have ways to do that as well. And now to wrap up, just want to say a big thank you for listening and for following through with us. We have a BetaNYC/links page available. So if you want to use this little link, you can go there and you can actually join our Slack group. We run a really cool Slack community if you want to be a part of it and join the public interest tech/civic tech community here in NYC. We also have an awesome newsletter if you want to subscribe to that. And you will also find links if you want to send a data requests to our lab, or as we like to call them, a radar. And you can also find information on open data classes and the Open Data Ambassadors program there. So yeah, once again, just a big thank you to you all for listening so far. And thank you as well to Eric and to Porfirio and to Manhattan Borough President's Office for organizing this and giving us the chance to share the word on open data. So thank you
Thank you.
all.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it one more time. And I also want to say thank you to all of our attendees. We know that we kind of have the evening session, but even these lunchtime, lunch and learn kind of sessions are really helpful. And it looks like folks really took a lot from it based on the comments that we're seeing in the Q&A. So just thank you all for being here. And again, I want to give a plug to the other 6 sessions that we have coming up. We have our conflict of interest later this evening. And then tomorrow afternoon, we're going to have tomorrow evening, we're going to have a really exciting one on housing finance. So please check out our website, go under resources for where you signed up here, and sign up to other sessions as well. Thank you all so much and hope to see you on another training soon. Take care, everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye.